Counsel to the president, Kellyanne Conway, is back with us. One of my favorite people in the world. How are you?
I'm great, Sean. How are you today?
I'm good, except, look, how long have we been friends? Over 20 years, right?
Oh, easily.
And, you know, you and I talked so many times during the campaign. What mattered to me in this election was the people in poverty, on food stamps, out of the labor force, no national security policy, America in decline, all these things. And I love that you guys are moving at the speed of light and shock and awe. But I bet you're not sleeping very much, are you?
Well, it doesn't look that way, does it, Sean?
I think you look amazing.
I don't mind being, those are the Fox makeup artists. I don't mind being tired. I mind looking tired. But I work for a man who's just like this whirling dervish of activity. He just doesn't stop. He's all action, all impact. And even though there have been 20 or 21 executive actions since he's taken office, only one is getting coverage about the travel halt. Whereas when he opened up the Dakota and Keystone pipelines, we heard from people all across the country relieved, feeling that their lives will be measurably changed and improved because they'll have jobs now. They'll have energy independence. The local economy will be stimulated. National security will be enhanced. When he took us out of TPP, as he promised he would, we heard from labor unions, laborers who said, look, I've been voting Democratic like my daddy and granddaddy before me my entire life, but I broke ranks and I voted for Donald Trump here in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And I did that because I believe that he's going to renegotiate these bad trade deals and keep the jobs and the factories and the work here and out of Mexico and China. He did Mexico City policy day 2. There's so much that he's done that isn't getting coverage, and I think it's difficult for people to catch up with him. I think it's difficult for Washington to adapt to this type of pace and this type of impact, but that's what happens when you get some guy from the private sector who's accountable and used to delivering results and not studying them and not talking about divided government, just producing.
I just put up on the screen regularly on TV, I keep adding to it, he eased the burden of Obamacare on day 1. He took action to freeze all of these regulations and is promising a 75% cut by the time all is said and done. You mentioned he withdrew the U.S. from TPP, instituted a ban on hiring, a federal government ban. He issued a ban on providing abortion funding abroad. He instituted executive actions for Keystone, Dakota Access, and building the pipe here in America, which helps the steel industry. He issued executive actions on the construction of the border wall and stripping money from sanctuary cities. He's following up on extreme vetting, which will keep the country safe. It's the right thing to do. He has the authority to do it. He has issued action on rebuilding the military. He issued executive action to draft a plan to defeat ISIS. It'll be returned to him now in about 15 days. A 5-year lobbying ban. He nominated, as promised, an originalist to the court, Neil Gorsuch. And, the only fear I have is, Paul Ryan says the first agenda item is going to be repeal and replace or repeal and repair. I didn't like the change of the phrasing. And number 2, he's talking about by year's end. And that means where's the economic plan? I mean, you've got a president that wants to work at the speed of light, and Congress, to me, it's almost unconscionable that they didn't have a consensus replacement plan in place to go after 8 years.
That's the thing. I mean, especially if you've voted to repeal Obamacare dozens of times while in the House, you'd think that the second part would be taken care of. But I will tell you, we're making great progress with the House and with Speaker Ryan. We're waiting for the Senate to confirm President Trump's nominee to the Health and Human Services Secretary, which is Tom Price, Dr. and Congressman Tom Price. Once we get him in place, once we get Seema Verna over at Medicare and Medicaid, also brilliant and competent, then we'll start cooking when it comes to this replacement. But, repeal and repair, if we're worried about the people who currently rely upon Obamacare for coverage, the president has made very clear, Sean, those people will be taken care of. But the idea that we're going to continue with a system that is top-down, that penalizes people who refuse to capitulate and buy government-run health insurance, that does not put the patients front and center, but the government front and center, that gets the government in the way of you and your intimate relationship with your doctor and other healthcare professionals. The idea that you can start buying health insurance across state lines the way you can almost every other good and service, and the idea that you would have a health savings account with your name on it. I mean, all these are positive, free market, patient-centric reforms that will happen if Congress is listening to Donald Trump. That's his view. He's put out there what he thinks the replacement should be.
Well, I agree. And the thing is I love the pace at which the president's working. And, I know his schedule. He doesn't go to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning. He's up at 5 or 6 every morning. And he gets up and he rolls up his sleeves and he goes to work. I'm just wondering, why are they lowering expectations within Congress? It's beginning to really frustrate me because I would imagine that they support his economic plan. It's Reagan-esque in every way imaginable. 7 brackets to 3, a 15% corporate rate, repatriation. If we move on energy independence. We could literally create millions of career, high-paying jobs for people. That'll help the economy. Getting rid of Obamacare is going to be like a tax cut for people. You know, to me, it's like, well, let's go. Get your ass in gear, and I don't see the action that I want to see or the sense of urgency that clearly the president has at the White House.
Well, remember, they're not businessmen, and they're not people that are accustomed to delivering results instead of promising them. And also, you just had this corrosive excuse of divided government for years. It has been years and years since the Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the White House, and it was sort of at the beginning, I think, of the Bush first term, toward the beginning or middle, and it wasn't for that long anyway. And so this idea that, well, we would get X, Y, and Z done, but we don't have the White House. Well, you do. And you've got over 30-some governors, and you've got most of the state legislatures in your control. And that means America did that through causation, not coincidence. They absolutely demand that action be taken. The other thing is, I would just appeal to some of these members of Congress through the thing that we know they all care about, the polls. Have you seen the IBD-TIPP poll? Because that was the one that was accurate, always predicting every day Donald Trump was ahead of Hillary Clinton, and he was. But they're showing a majority support his executive order to temporarily block from those 7 countries, people, the foreign nationals. You've got 50% who say the country's headed in the right direction. It was 40% before he was elected. You have 55% saying the economy is improving. You have more people saying that Obamacare should be repealed than it should be left as it is, 2-1. You've got 42-20. You've got 47% in that poll saying trade deals have hurt job creation in the U.S. 22%, less than half that number, say they've helped. So even for those who can't keep up with that Trumpian pace that is just unprecedented and unbelievable, but promised and delivered upon and deserved, Sean, even for those who can't keep up with him, keep up with the polls. We all know that these politicians love the polls, and the people are telling you, meet up with his level of action and his level of impact. You know, I watch this guy every day. I'm with him throughout the day, every single day. His commitment to the American people, the sacrifices he and his family have made for him to be here and do this job, really compels him to get so much done in such a quick amount of time. I have veterans in my portfolio here. I've opioid use in my portfolio. We're going to do things that impact people. This is not about prestige. This is about impact. And we hear from people all across the country who don't listen to the phony baloney, who don't listen to all the snark and the eye rolling and the presumptive negativity against the president. They're watching. They're not listening. Some people are listening to the media. Most Americans are watching the president, and they like
I agree. And they like the action. They like the movement. Yeah. And I think Congress needs to learn a lesson here that things can get done if they just get moving. And I'm a little concerned at the pace of which they're describing action on, for example, repealing and replacing, action on the economy, action on energy, action on the vets, action on the military. I'm thinking, guys, you need to keep up. You're really way behind here. So I was going to ask you this out of the box, but I got a little distracted. Here's what I want to ask you. I watched you yesterday on CNN, and I have known you for 20 plus years, and you are one of the nicest, kindest, gentle-hearted people I've ever known in my life. That's who you are. That is your nature. That's what makes you who you are. And I have been watching a steady increase in volume and rudeness, and I'm really as a friend, I'm getting annoyed for you that you have to tolerate this kind of rudeness from the media. And you know exactly which interview I'm talking about. And my question to you is, does it get to a point where if people are going to be that rude, that insulting on a regular basis, that it's not worth your time?
I can tell you it won't get to a point where I feel any differently about President Trump and the mission that he's put before us and the honor and the blessing it is to serve him because he's serving the American people. So anybody who's trying to grind us all down here, anybody who's trying to divide us, knock us down like bowling pins one by one, it's not going to work insofar as we're here to serve him. And if you learn nothing else about me during the campaign, it's that I'm very good about caring and loving, like you said, but also about being impervious to the naysayers and critics. I cannot let somebody redefine or unravel me.
Listen, I give you all the credit.
On Twitter or on a TV interview, and I'm here to represent him.
All right, hang on one second. We'll have more with Kellyanne when we come back on the other side of this break.
AM 560,
Kellyanne Conway, who is back with us, and of course she is now in the White House working with the president every day as a counselor to the president. Let me ask you, I know the pace at which you all are working. I got to see it up close and personal the first week, and it's kind of refreshing to see all of that. I'm watching the progress that's being made. From your timetable, knowing that Congress Congress is moving at a snail's pace. How soon do you think the president gets to do his budget? How soon can we expect the repeal and replacement of Obamacare? How soon do we get to the point where energy production begins at a mass level that moves us towards independence? When do we start fixing the VA, which are other things? Again, I'm looking at the success so far, which has been, shock and awe, speed of light. How soon do you think these other agenda items get done?
Part of that, Sean, is dependent on Congress and the congressional schedule. But in terms of the president himself engaging on these issues, that's already started. There was actually no break, no vacation, no honeymoon period for him between talking about it as a candidate, winning on it, and then preparing as president-elect into his presidency. So none of that has changed, and it's just been sort of a seamless line. It really depends on some of the congressional committees and the schedule. But we're very hopeful that so much of this will be measurable and impactful this year, so that people aren't going to say, well, that's a 2019 thing. Let's wait till after the midterms. I mean, that's just not the way the president's mind works, and that's not where his commitment is. But in terms of a budget, and one that is much more reflective of free market, anti-regulatory overreach, pro-tax relief policies, that cuts out wasteful spending, that budget should be very Trumpian. It should have the hallmarks of President Trump this year. Repealing and replacing Obamacare, in some ways, has already started in that he has had significant meetings and policy advancements in terms of what will work and what can't work and when. But let me say something else about Obamacare. That sucker has lots of tentacles and runs very deep. The roots go very deep. In March, it will be 7 years since we had to suffer through Obamacare. And yes, I know millions of people rely upon it, but millions were hurt by it. And to really cut something out, roots and branch takes a while. And it has to be done the right way, because you can't just do it piecemeal. But in terms of action and impact, you are going to feel that this year. This can't just be a planning and a studying year. It has to be an action and impact year. That's his intention.
Well, I think, all of that. Do you worry about the filibuster possibility on Neil Gorsuch, which I think was a superb choice by the president for the Supreme Court? But Democrats, they just seem to be appealing to those people like Madonna and Ashley Judd and Elizabeth Warren that are out there protesting every day. Do you worry, if they filibuster this, that the Senate will not go with the nuclear option, which Harry Reid, of course, set a precedent for?
Yes, we do worry about that. It's a very real concern, only because look at what the Democrats have done just in this last week or so. Last night you had Elizabeth Warren being rebuked for her comments about Senator Sessions reading something from 1986 and then going on Facebook Live to try to read the whole thing to anybody who wanted to tune in, and of course being a fixture on cable TV ever since she did that. You've got Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, since they are in the minority there. You have him promising to, quote, oppose any Supreme Court nominee that President Trump puts forward before he even knows who it is, before he knows his academic credentials, judicial temperament.
There was nobody he would support. I know you have to run. There's nobody he would support.
That's right.
No.
So, of course, when you say, are we concerned about this, that, and the other, we see what the Democrats are up to. I mean, their party's in complete meltdown, identity crisis. Their hair is on fire every single day. You don't know what's real and what's not. And look what it's gotten in the last 2 nights in a row. They stayed up through the night to try to protest and obstruct one of our nominees. Guess what happened? Betsy DeVos is now the Secretary of Education, and by tomorrow, Senator Sessions will be our new Attorney General.
Great point.
So, I don't know.
All right, Kellyanne, I got to cut you off because I'm on a hard break here. But there are those of us out there that are cheering you on, and we're sorry that you're putting up with so much garbage and unfairness from an abusively biased media. But we appreciate your fight every day. Thanks as always for spending time with us. We appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Sean.